What's up, desktoppers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are back with another video. And today I'm wrapping up a pre-judging of the 212 2020 Mr Olympia. Going to go pose by pose with that final call out and also highlight a few other competitors as well. So let's go to the last four call out and I'll highlight each competitor. So George Peterson on the left here. Really, first time out in the 212s, at least at the Olympia, placed top 3 last year in the Classic. So an awesome achievement to finish in that top 4, or at least looks like he's going to finish in that top 4 at the 2020 Mr Olympia. Second on the left, Shaun Clarida. This dude is the shortest guy in the lineup. So impressive. And he looks like he's maybe going to get a top 2 finish here. Potentially even win the 212 Olympia at what he can't be much over 5 foot tall. Then you got Kamal Elgargni second on the right, last year's 2019 212 champion. He said he added about 5 pounds of muscle, and it looked like he added 5 pounds of muscle, and he came in just as good condition as last year, in my opinion. And then you got Derek Lunsford, multiple time runner up in that 212 class, far on the right. I don't think this was Derek's best. When he first came out, he looked better, and then he seemed to fade as he was on stage. And the same thing happened last year as well, unfortunately for Derek, and his conditioning, at least from the front, wasn't on. But when he turned to the back, he looked pretty damn impressive. So let's go through it pose by pose. Front double bicep. So as you can see here, it's not the best pose for any of these guys, except Derek Lunsford in terms of his structure. His structure looks phenomenal on this pose. Then you got, George Peterson, where I don't think he flows perfectly on this pose, but he looks pretty damn good. He just, I suppose, looks like he needs maybe a little bit more muscle to match up with some of these other guys, but it's really not Shaun Clarida's or Kamal Elgargni's best pose, but probably Shaun Clarida is almost winning that pose, but I'd maybe give it to Kamal. Let's move on to the front. Let's move on to the front lat spread, where I think George Peterson looks a lot better on this pose because his waist goes right in. His aesthetics really show that shoulder to waist ratio, and then you can see his quads sweep out nicely on that one, where his legs have sort of been a little bit of a knock on him in the past. So pretty impressive George Peterson there. This one, in terms of Shaun Clarida, doesn't flow as much. He has the sort of narrow clavicles, so sometimes the front shots he can look a little bit narrow on, especially the front lat spread, but obviously, very, very conditioned and very thickly muscled for his height. Kamal Elgargni on this one, his quads have really improved. Like, I am in shock about how his quads have improved. Going out and training in Flex Lewis's Dragon Lair seems to have worked very well for Kamal Elgargni. His waist is a little bit wide from the front. He doesn't have the best, I suppose, structure, but what he lacks in structure, he makes up for in conditioning, and he's 49 years of age. So to improve that much in 1 year after winning the 212 Olympia, absolutely incredible. And then Derek Lunsford on the right, his structure looks really good here, but you can see in the quads, sort of hurts him a little bit, to be honest. His quads seem almost a little bit down, which is unfortunate because we was hoping, his legs will come up. Maybe they just flattened out. Maybe he's a little bit too flat here. I'm not too sure, but his structure overall looks absolutely phenomenal. So we'll move on to the side chest, and I think pretty much this is when Kamal comes into his own and really establishes himself as the winner of this contest. And honestly, hands down, I have this guy winning this contest. No offense to Shaun Clarida or, any of these other guys, but I think Kamal is going to win. You can just see his hamstring looks great here, his quad from the side, he's thickly muscled on the upper body, and he's in great condition. Shaun Clarida, you can see his chest is, not wide. His chest just isn't wide across it, but he is very thickly muscled. He has awesome hanging hamstrings. His quad from the side looks very impressive. Very, very good bodybuilder. Then you got George Peterson, who I think looks actually great on his pose as well. He hits it absolutely perfectly. Good separation in the legs. Probably just slightly under muscled because he is 5'8" against these other guys. And then you got Derek Lunsford on the right. And this, honestly, Derek Lunsford looks sort of soft in this pose, and you could see he was sweating in that final call out. So it's probably not too fair to use the final call out on Derek Lunsford because he did look better when he first came out, but you can see here he's definitely getting out conditioned. And we can move to the back double bicep. Now, I thought George Peterson was going to wipe everyone on the back double bicep, but Kamal Elgargni, I honestly think, wins this shot because from the waist down, his glutes are away in. His glutes are all the way in. His back looks absolutely phenomenal, so thick and so dense. His arms are huge. I think that's where he wins it. His arms are bigger than George's, and his delts are bigger than George's, in my opinion. George maybe has like a wider back, maybe slightly more impressive back, but Kamal's is very, very deep. You can see in the middle of the back there, very impressive. His glutes are in, more so than George's. And you got to say, all these guys really have good backs. You look at Derek Lunsford. This is the shot where Derek Lunsford actually looks really good because Derek's confusing to look at because you look at his glutes and they are feathered. They are so deeply cut. And when I actually saw Derek and I was looking down and making notes, I was like, Derek's on. And that's sort of one of the first times I really was concentrating on Derek in the lineup, and I thought he was on. And then he turned back to the front, I was like, what happened? And then when he came out the next time, I was like, oh, he's faded actually a bit more. And then you got Shaun Clarida here as well, who has the real peaky biceps, big delts, and really has the amazing shoulder to waist ratio and has an awesome X frame on that shot. But I'd probably give that one to Kamal Elgargni. Then we go to the back lat spread. Now, this is where it gets a bit closer, but I think George Peterson wins this because how wide his lats actually are compared to his waist. He doesn't have the glutes like Kamal or anything, but Kamal has the slightly wider waist. So I'd probably give this one to George Peterson, followed by maybe Kamal or Shaun Clarida, but probably I'd give it to Kamal, honestly, when you see him moving. Go to the side tricep. Kamal Elgargni wins this one, in my opinion. He's tight through the abs. His chest looks big, his shoulders, his arms. Everything really just looks balanced and good on that pose for him. Then you probably give it to maybe a Shaun Clarida or a George Peterson following that. Then you go to the ab and thigh. Now, these guys hit these poses a little bit different a few different times. I mean, George Peterson and Kamal end up hitting the pose the same, just a slight variation between each of them. Derek Lunsford is really fading at this point. He's sort of, pushing his butt right back. You can't see his abs properly. He's getting little bits of folds there, and his quads really do look reasonably flat here. But I'd probably give this one to George Peterson or Kamal, but probably Kamal, honestly. He's just that hard and that thick and that dense. I'd probably give that one to him. And then we head to the most muscular. Kamal held hands down in this one. He looks absolutely phenomenal. He is carved from stone. He is thick. Yeah, he's not as aesthetic as some of these other guys, but Kamal is just so thick. And as soon as he walked out to do his individual routine, I was like, Kamal's won. It was very, very evident because he was the last one out on stage and he just looked absolutely spectacular. So I think Kamal Elgargni will win this 212 Olympia, but I'll highlight a few of the other guys for you as well. But we're in that sort of second last call out. So we had Ahmad Ashkanani. Now, Ahmed is confusing to look at. When he hits his side chest and a few other shots like that and his back shots, he looks pretty damn amazing. But then he hits some of the front shots where his quads don't look as impressive and you can sort of see the faults in his physique. He's not what he used to be when he finished second to Flex Lewis in the Olympia, where his lines were a bit cleaner. So I don't think that he's going to be a factor. I don't think he's going to push into the top 4 here. Then you got Derek Osland. Now, I love Derek's physique, but I actually was surprised he was put in the middle of this second last call out because that sort of puts him as maybe finishing a 5th or a 6th. I thought there's maybe a couple of other guys that could have been ahead of him, but maybe that will happen in finals. But his shape is amazing. When he hits some shots, you see he's in decent condition, but I think he could have been a little bit harder, and the judges obviously like what he's bringing, and I've always liked his shape. So I think if he can come in a little bit harder at next year's Olympia, he could be a guy pushing his way right into the top 4 or top 3 even. Then you got Ole Kravi. Now, this dude was shredded. He looked painfully shredded. He's got to be totally suffering to get that lean. Very impressive. He's got some deep cuts in his muscle, and I think he can place 5th here. And it's really a shock because I didn't pick him, in my top 11, let alone my top 4 or 5 or 6. Then you got Angel Calderon. I actually picked him as finishing 4th in this show. I think when you stand next to some of these other guys, you sort of see where he gets beaten. And really, I think he came in a little bit flat here, especially in the legs. And I think maybe he's just been dieting for so long that maybe his legs flattened out. And once you do so much cardio and you prep for so long, that can sort of happen. I don't know what he was doing cardio-wise, but his legs definitely did look flat next to these other guys. But we know now, if he improves his legs and brings them up and they get nice and thick and full, then this dude can be literally winning 212 Olympia titles. And then you had Dedrick Bo Lewis. I think he's got an awesome physique, and I think he can build on this and, push his way into the top 5 eventually, maybe next year or maybe the year after. Very, very impressive physique. So that's my wrap of the 212 pre-judging from the 2020 Mr. Olympia. If you guys want to follow all my coverage from the 2020 Mr. Olympia, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of every video that goes up from myself, Xavier Wills at Desktop Bodybuilding. I'm going to be covering the 2020 Olympia all this weekend and even next week as well. So make sure you do subscribe. And if you did like this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up and smash that like button as well. But anyway, for Xavier Wills at Desktop Bodybuilding, we are out.